Welcome, everyone. My name is Francine Allen, and I'm a registered dietitian and medical affairs manager with Nestle Health Science. I am thrilled to introduce today's speaker and assist with today's webinar, A Plant-Powered Diet for Optimal Health. So I'm very pleased today to introduce today's speaker, Sharon Palmer. Sharon Palmer is a registered dietitian nutritionist and has a master's degree in sustainable food systems from Green Mountain College in Vermont. Sharon is best known as the plant-powered dietitian. Sharon has created an award-winning career based on combining her two great loves, nutrition and writing. Sharon is an accomplished writer, editor, blogger, author, speaker, and media expert. In particular, her expertise is in plant-based nutrition, cooking, and sustainability. She has authored over 950 articles in a variety of publications, including Better Homes and Gardens, Oprah Magazine, and the LA Times. Her book, The Plant-Powered Diet, The Lifelong Eating Plan for Achieving Optimal Health, Beginning Today, was a critical success in 2012 and was followed in 2014 by her second book, Plant Powered for Life, Eat Your Way to Lasting Health, with 52 simple steps and 125 delicious recipes. In addition, she has contributed to several book chapters on nutrition and sustainability. Sharon serves as the nutrition editor for Today's Dietitian and judge for the James Beard Journalism Awards. She provides her expertise to many publications and organizations on an advisory basis and speaks widely at conferences and in the media, including print, online, radio, podcasts, television, social media, and film. And she still has time to blog every day for her popular online community at The Plant-Powered Dietitian. Sharon serves as a nutritional advisor at both Sterling College in Vermont and Prescott College in Arizona on the topic of sustainable nutrition. Living in the Chaparral Hills overlooking Los Angeles with her husband and two sons, Sharon enjoys tending to her own organic garden, visiting the local farmers market every week, and cooking for friends and family. Welcome, Sharon.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here today. So my favorite saying is to fall in love with plants and they will love you back. Did you know that there are 40,000 edible species of plants on the planet? And each has an amazing story to tell in the way that they can nourish and help heal our bodies. For example, here's a photo of heirloom tomatoes from my local farmer's market. And there are 25,000 types of tomatoes alone. And tomatoes have an example of an amazing story in which they were originally cultivated by the Aztecs. The Spanish explorers discovered them and brought them to Asia and Europe, and they traveled all over Asia and Europe, and that's why we have tomatoes in Italian cuisine and in the Mediterranean, and then they came full circle back with the British colonists. And now today we know that tomatoes have health benefits. They have lycopene that is linked with disease protection. And this is just a story of one vegetable. So it's really exciting when we look at the power of plants. So today I'm going to be talking about the health benefits associated with plant-based diets. I'll be listing plant proteins that can replace animal proteins on the plate. I'll help you synthesize strategies for letting people eat a more plant-based diet. And we'll be reviewing how to incorporate plant-based tube feeding formulas for those who are unable to eat by mouth. So there's no doubt about it, plant-based eating is really hot news. I can't go a single day without seeing a headline that has plant-based in the title. So I grabbed a few that I found recently. One headline is that there is a 600% increase in US vegans. This is from the IFIC Food and Health Survey. Interest in sustainability, plant-based diets were among the top trends of the year. And this is from the grocer talking about the plant-based food trend is much more than a fad. So it definitely is a hot trend, and we're seeing it in the data. 24% of consumers eat more plant protein than the previous year. There is an estimated $140 billion market for alternative meat in the next 10 years. And even Impossible Burger is just really making a sweep in fast food restaurants such as Burger King. They've been announcing that it's going to be more available. Veganism is on the rise. 11% of Gen Z are calling themselves vegans, 10% of millennials, and 2/3 of US consumers say they're eating less meat. So I think it all comes back to what Michael Pollan said: eat food, not too much, mostly plants. I love that sentiment. So this is from the US News Best Diets Report in 2019. It's the expert panel. And they basically said plant-based diets are good for the environment, your heart, your weight, and your overall health. So US News defines a plant-based diet as one that emphasizes minimally processed foods from plants with modest amounts of fish, lean meat, and low-fat dairy, with red meat used sparingly. So even the dietary guidelines in the last round went more plant-based. We had the 3 diet patterns that were plant-based, such as the Mediterranean, the US Healthy Diet Pattern, and the Vegetarian Diet. For the first time, that was called out as a diet pattern that Americans might want to consider for health benefits. And also other recommendations like limiting saturated fat, eating more fruits, vegetables, and pulses. These were all in line with a more plant-based diet. So plant-based diets are also part of the blue zones. And the blue zones were this is an amazing concept, a book written by Dan Buettner, who was a National Geographic journalist. And he identified these 5 locations around the world in which people lived the longest. They had the largest amount of centenarians in these regions. And I've been fortunate enough to visit all 5 of these blue zones. This is me in a photo in Japan, where they're identified as one of the blue zones, working with kids in the classroom eating the traditional diet. Another blue zone is in Loma Linda University, Loma Linda, California, where I attended dietetics program at Loma Linda University, Costa Rica, Italy, and Greece. So the thing that, the common trait that was found about the diet in the blue zones is that it was a primarily plant-based diet. There were other benefits found in this culture, such as a sense of community. There was really strong relationships in the communities, as well as exercise. It was just part of the daily life. But definitely the diet link was this plant-based diet. And when we look around the world at indigenous traditional diets, we see that plant-based diets are very common. It's the common eating pattern when we still find these parts of the world where they're eating the same way they have for centuries, and we find low risk of chronic disease in these areas. So for example, this is the Sacred Valley of Peru, where they're still eating a very plant-based diet. This is a farmer's market in Thailand, where you can see, rows of vegetables, and in Japan, all the beautiful local vegetables. So when we look at this diet pattern, we would see things like a local whole grain that would form a basis of the diet. So it could be something like quinoa in Peru or brown rice in Asia. We would see a local legume that was an important part of the diet, whether it was black beans in Mexico or chickpeas in the Middle East. And then this big basis of seasonal, cultivated, and foraged fruits and vegetables that would really form, the backbone of this diet. A lot of times these foods were just grown in the backyard in a kitchen garden, traded with neighbors, received at little local markets. But these were really economical. Sometimes they were free in the diet. So it was really an important part of the diet. As well as seeds and nuts, we would see these in the diet. It could be sesame seeds or peanuts in Africa, for example. The foods were minimally processed based on these whole plant foods, and then this low use of animal foods. Many of these traditional diets were considered poor man's diets. So these foods were more for celebration. They were not part of the regular routine diet. But sadly, we have moved to the Western diet. And we know this in our work that Western countries such as the United States and Europe were eating more of this industrialized diet, high in animal foods, highly processed foods, and fast foods. Consequently, the diet's high in sugar, sodium, and saturated fat. And sadly, we're not eating enough fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes. So the diet pattern is low in fiber, vitamins, minerals, and phytochemicals. And I found this one photo to exemplify the Western diet. It's a deep fried donut bacon cheeseburger with fries, just to kind of show how our diets had flipped from these traditional, beautiful plant-based diets to a more industrialized diet. So this is a picture of my family eating a plant-based diet in my back garden. And I'm very passionate in my belief that plant-based eating really is an answer for so many issues. It's a diet pattern that has it all. Just one way that we can eat can have a lot of power. We can have environmental benefits, we can have health benefits, we can have animal welfare benefits, and also we can provide a solution for feeding our growing population. It's anticipated that we're going to be at almost 10 billion people on our planet by the year 2050. So we have to do something about it, and experts agree that plant-based eating is going to be a good solution for this. So Meatless Monday has also been a supporter of the plant-based movement. I love this simple idea that by eating a more plant-based diet 1 day a week, eliminating meat from the menu 1 day a week can really make a difference. It can help introduce people to a more plant-based eating style. So we see organizations, hospitals, schools, universities, restaurants lining up to support Meatless Monday. A lot of influencers, celebrities have done so as well. And you can find more information at their website. But research shows that people start out their week with their best behaviors. So Meatless Monday has been successful at getting people to try this eating pattern 1 day a week. So what is a plant-based diet? Well, the definition is a diet that focuses on plants. And there's been a lot of discussion about, where that definition is going, but overall, it's a diet that focuses on plants. So we can see that a vegan diet fits in this plan, in this overall plan, but it's the diet that would exclude all animal foods. A lacto-ovo-vegetarian is no animal flesh, but it allows for dairy and eggs. And then we have the pescatarian diet, which is basically a vegetarian diet with seafood, and this is growing in popularity. And then finally, we have the semi-vegetarian or flexitarian category. And this is really growing in popularity. And this is a diet that would include small amounts of animal foods, but it's not exclusively plant-based. There are lots of environmental benefits of plant-based eating, and we're seeing more and more of this come out in the literature. This one particular study from the Adventist Health Study 2 found that plant-based eaters had a lower carbon footprint compared to non-vegetarians. So semi-vegetarians had a 20% lower carbon footprint, pescatarians 24% lower, lacto-ovo-vegetarians 28% lower, and vegans 42% lower. And in fact, Albert Einstein himself was a vegetarian, and he said nothing will benefit human health and increase chances for survival of life on Earth as much as the evolution to a vegetarian diet. So I think he was ahead of his time in this regard, and it's really showing that if we can start evolving to a more plant-based diet, we can really help protect our planet. There are lots of studies that are showing individual benefits in terms of eco-impact. I'm going to share a few of them today. In this one study in the EU, they found that reducing livestock production by 50% could reduce greenhouse gas emissions by up to 40%. So that's very significant. And in this study in Spain, they compared the Western diet to a plant-based diet, and they found that you could reduce the greenhouse gas emissions by 72%, land use by 58%, energy consumption by 52%, water consumption by 33%. So this is very significant, and it's looking at more than just carbon footprint here. We're looking at all the other aspects of the environment. And in fact, reducing animal products could also save water, which is a huge issue now, especially in my state of California, as we're being more concerned about saving our precious water resources with climate change. So by reducing animal products, you could save water resources up to the amount to feed 1.8 billion additional people globally. So it's a much lower water footprint to eat a plant-based diet. In addition, people consuming the average diet release more than 700 kilograms of CO2 per year more than someone who ate only plants. So it really reinforces this idea that a plant-based diet can reduce carbon footprint. I especially like to promote pulses or legumes because they are the most efficient protein source when it comes to planetary resources. 1 kilogram of protein from pulses or legumes uses 18 times less land, 10 times less water, 9 times less fuel, 12 times less fertilizer, and 10 times less pesticides than beef. So you can see this is a great sustainable source. This is a photo of fresh chickpeas from the farmer's market in Crete, where pulses are a very important part of the diet. So in addition to a lower carbon footprint, they're drought tolerant. So you can grow pulses in places, harsh environments where there's not very much water. They also act as natural fertilizer. Legumes have this amazing ability to capture nitrogen in the air and deposit in the soil, so reducing the need for fertilizers, which are fossil-based and produce issues such as runoff. They can aid in food security because half of the production of pulses occurs in developing nations, so we can keep that healthy, nutrient-rich food source in these places. Increases crop diversity because farmers have a practice of rotating their crops with pulses. It helps this problem of how we're going to feed the world, and on top of that, they're economical. So this is really something we can promote more of in the plant-based diet. So there are also many health benefits linked with a plant-based diet. This is straight from the position statement from the Academy. It basically talks about that vegetarian, including vegan diets, are healthful, nutritionally adequate, and they can provide benefits, and they are appropriate for all stages of the life cycle. They're also more environmentally sustainable, and vegetarians and vegans have a reduced risk of diseases such as ischemic heart disease, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, certain types of cancer, and obesity. They're also linked with lower total and LDL cholesterol and better serum glucose. So this is a beautiful paper that you can refer to if you ever have other questions. So what is so great about whole, minimally processed plant foods? So I like to say that they're high in all the good stuff. Things like fiber, vitamins, minerals, healthy fats, phytochemicals, and low glycemic carbs. Now, some of these things are only found in the plant world, so that's one of the beauties of a plant-based diet, is that we can capture all these important nutrients, but they're also low in the bad stuff. Things like saturated fat, dietary cholesterol, sodium related to the processing of meats, and then toxins. We know that toxins develop in the cooking, curing, and processing of meats. So this is really what the healthy plant-based diet is about. One of the things that's so important is the phytochemicals, and we now know that there are thousands of phytochemicals found in plant foods, and they are linked with the color of the plant. They provide the aroma, the bite, the spiciness of plants. So Americans are falling sadly short of these phytochemicals in their food supply. I like to say that they're getting their colors from things like brightly colored yogurt and cheese puffs, instead of getting it from whole plant foods. This diagram from the USDA shows the percentage of calories from food, and you can see that 12% of the American diet is coming from plant food, but it's even worse than that because only half of that is real whole plant food. The other half is things like almonds from almond candy bars or apples from apple pie. So only 6% is coming from whole plant food. So you can see we have a long way to go in encouraging more plant-based diets. There are many specific health benefits linked with a plant-based diet, which I'll be going over with you. First of all, longevity. Research has shown that the more closely people adhere to a plant-based diet, this was in the EPIC study, the longer their lifespan. And other studies have found similar benefits. One study found vegetarians had a 12% lower risk of dying over the study period compared to meat eaters. Vegans had a 15% lower in the study. Other studies have found diets with higher amounts of protein from plants are linked with lower mortality. And when plant proteins were substituted for high animal protein diets, they lowered the mortality risk as well. This makes perfect sense because of all the health benefits. A lower risk of chronic disease related to a plant-based diet would mean increased longevity, so it makes perfect sense. Another benefit we see pretty consistently is healthier weight. So several studies have looked at weight loss, the effectiveness of weight loss, and they found that vegan or vegetarian diets are very beneficial. I listed a couple of studies here. Also, the EPIC study found that just overall, plant-based eaters weighed less. So in particular, vegans weighed less, one entire BMI category less. So there is a benefit there. And then even Mediterranean diet and flexitarian diets have been linked with weight reduction benefits and metabolic benefits as well. These are some of my recipes for plant-powered eating. You can find them on my blog, but I just like to exemplify that plant-based eating can be beautiful, delicious, approachable, using local and seasonal plant foods, making it really, desirable for our clients. One of the benefits is lower oxidative stress and inflammation, and we now know that this is a root of chronic diseases. So studies are showing that high intakes of whole plant foods such as fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, tea, coffee, red wine, and olive oil, they're linked with decreased levels of oxidative stress and inflammation. And in the Adventist Health Study 2, vegetarians had a lower CRP level. And studies have also found that diets filled with some of these plant compounds are linked with lower markers of oxidative stress. And again, this makes perfect sense because we know these plant foods are filled with antioxidant and anti-inflammatory compounds linked with the phytochemicals. So it's intuitive that it would reduce the biomarkers of oxidative stress and inflammation. Another benefit that's pretty consistent is heart health. So numerous studies have found benefits related to heart health. One study found 32% lower risk of hospitalization or death from heart disease in vegetarians, 25% reduced risk of ischemic heart disease with vegetarian and vegan diets, and many heart benefits have been found that correlate with that. For example, the lower inflammation levels, lower oxidative stress levels, lower blood pressure, lower LDL levels. So these are the things that are contributing to heart health, even better vascular function biomarkers. So this makes sense that we would see a reduced risk of heart disease. Type 2 diabetes, there's more information and research out there in not only the prevention of type 2 diabetes, but the management of type 2 diabetes. So I shared a few studies here. One study found that just by substituting nuts for red meat or whole grains, you could reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes very significantly. Another study found that meat eaters had a significantly higher risk of developing diabetes compared to people who ate no meat. And also vegetarian diet patterns were linked with lower metabolic syndrome and risk of type 2 diabetes. Canadian Diabetes Association is now recommending plant-based diets as being beneficial for managing the condition as well. So we're seeing a lot of interest in this area. These are some more of my plant-based recipes showing ideas of how we can incorporate whole plant foods in the diet, such as a lentil salad that can be protein-rich but also be simple and delicious, filling things like squash with a quinoa and a cranberry filling, which is also good for the holidays when they're coming up, but beautiful meals, and then these really nice hearty lentil stews like this that can form the basis of a menu. So you can find more of these recipes on my blog at SharonPalmer.com. Lower risk of cancer is another benefit. We're seeing lower risk of total cancer in some studies related to a vegetarian and vegan diet, 8% in this particular study. And then the AICR says that plant foods are linked with protection against many cancers, such as mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, lung, pancreas, and prostate, as well as digestive cancers. So this is from the AICR. And studies have linked plant-based diets with 20% lower breast cancer risk and 22% lower colorectal cancer risk. This is from the World Cancer Research Fund, their recommendations, straight out of their recommendations, and I highlighted the two that have to do with plant-based diets. They actually say eat more of a variety of vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and pulses, And they say limit consumption of red meats and avoid processed meats. So again, this is really showing the health benefit of a more plant-based diet. There's more interest in the gut and immune function now, and plant-based diets feed right into this. We know that those friendly bacteria feed on fiber, and where are they going to get the fiber? From plants. So there's more and more evidence from this showing that a fiber-rich plant-based diet promotes a healthy gut microbiota. And now this is linked to benefits such as digestive health, immune support, and brain health, weight. Many areas are being linked to the gut microbiome. In particular, scientists have been looking at the vegan gut profile and finding interesting benefits because the diet is very high in fiber. And one study found that there were reduced pathobionts, the disease-causing organisms, in the vegan gut microbiota, but they had increased protective species. So really that profile we're looking for. And the EPIC study found that vegetarians had a lower risk of death from diverticular disease, as well as hospital admissions related to diverticular disease. And the Mediterranean diet has been found to be beneficial for the gut microbiota. So I think we're going to see more research in this area, but it's just one more reason to eat a more plant-based diet. Brain function is another benefit. We know that chronic inflammation and oxidative stress are really hallmark signs along the path to Alzheimer's. So it would make sense that a plant-based diet would help reduce the risk. And we have seen studies support that a Mediterranean and plant-based diet pattern is linked with lower risk of developing Alzheimer's. There are 7 dietary and lifestyle guidelines to reduce the risk of Alzheimer's. I picked out 3 of them that were related to the plant-based diet. One was to minimize saturated fat as well as trans fat. And we know that a plant-based diet tends to be lower in saturated fat. And it specifically says to eat more plant-based foods and to consume vitamin E from foods, not supplements, every day. So these are, straight out of those guidelines. I'm really in love with the Adventist Health Study too. Of course, it's from my alma mater, but they have some of the best research on plant-based diets, and I encourage you to go check it out. But they did this wonderful study in which they collected data from 96,000 adults, and they divided their diets into 5 diet patterns. So there were non-vegetarians, semi-vegetarians, pescatarians, lacto-ovo-vegetarians, and vegan diet patterns that they had identified. And they looked at several outcomes: BMI, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, elevated cholesterol, CRP levels, insulin, overall cancer, mortality, even carbon footprint. And they found an overall linear relationship. So they found that the more plant-based the diet, generally, the better the benefit. But they also found benefits all along the way. So if someone became semi-vegetarian and ate more plant-based diet, they found significant benefits. So this is really encouraging. It shows that even small steps can make a difference as people become more plant-based. And the beauty of the plant-based diet, what they found in the Adventist Health Study, is right here. It's captured here in this graph, where you can see the axis of one there is the non-vegetarian diet, and you can see what people were actually eating on these diet patterns. So the green bar is the vegan diet, the yellow bar is the lacto-ovo, the blue bar is the pescatarian, the red bar is the semi-vegetarian. And you can see the actual intake of food groups within these diets, which really makes you understand why you see health benefits, because you can see how many more fruit servings, how many more vegetable servings. Look at the avocados, legumes, soy foods, nuts and seeds. They're consuming so many more servings of these healthful foods compared to the non-vegetarians. And you can see they're reducing the consumption of things like meat, dairy, and eggs. Of course, we know that would be true of a plant-based diet. But this is really capturing the beauty of a plant-based diet, where you can see the consumption of more plant foods. So as we're moving to more plant-based eating style, these are some of the foods that we can replace animal proteins with on the plate. So I like to recommend including plant proteins at every meal. So one of the first ones would be legumes. We talked about this, legumes, pulses. And this would be beans, lentils, and peas. These are very rich in protein, so they can take the place of animal proteins on the plate. Whole or minimally processed soy foods, edamame, tofu, tempeh, soy milk. And then nuts and nut butters. Some are richer in protein than others, but they can provide a significant source of protein. Seeds and seed butters, things like sunflower, sesame, hemp, chia, pumpkin, they can be very rich in protein. Whole grains can also be a good protein source. So when we're looking at intact cooked whole grains, they can have up to 11 grams per cup cooked. So that can be a significant contribution. Even vegetables, such as peas, spinach, and broccoli, can provide up to 6 grams of protein per cup cooked. So all of these things add up to provide protein in that whole foods plant-based diet. This is the Old Ways Vegetarian and Vegan Diet Pyramid. I helped develop this, and I think it's a great tool to show people how they can plan a plant-based diet. Even if they're doing semi-vegetarian or flexitarian, it can show how to plan a diet with this beautiful array of fruits and vegetables at the base, with whole grains, beans, soy, and then nuts, herbs, spices, plant oils. And then for vegetarians, they can include the dairy products and eggs at the top. So this is a great way that we can show people how to plan a more plant-based diet. So it's very exciting that we have some laws that are supporting plant-based meal options. One is in my state of California. We signed a law making the state the first to require prisons, hospitals, nursing homes, and other state facilities to offer plant-based meals. So these have to be completely plant-based, 100% plant-based meal options. And then New York State has followed with a similar law, and we believe other states are coming. So it's really exciting to see that this is being embraced, and it's just making sure that there are options available which will increase the consumption of plant-based foods. Even in New York City, Bellevue Hospital has a plant-based lifestyle medicine program with a plant-based doctor, dietitian, and coach. So we really see this movement. This is the Plant Forward Plates. It's a healthcare toolkit that I created to offer plant-based options in healthcare facilities of any kind. So essentially, it would have everything a hospital would need to get going on a plant-based meal option. It would have ordering guides, recipes, therapeutic menu sheets, everything, nutritional analysis, so that all kind of healthcare facilities could start offering plant-based options. So there's a lot of support for plant-based food in hospitals. In 2017, AMA adopted this resolution calling for hospitals to align their menus with their mission. And their mission was to improve the health of patients, staff, and visitors by providing a variety of healthful food, including plant-based meals, and also meals that are low in fat, sodium, and added sugars, and eliminating the processed meats and unhealthful beverages. So this is a very strong support in this direction. And surveys show that 57% of hospitals are serving less meat than the previous year. 82% are purchasing locally produced foods. 20% of hospitals have things like farmers markets, gardens, produce prescription programs, CSAs, really moving into this healthy space. I love the Healthcare Without Harm Cool Food Pledge. You can check it out at their website. And they're basically encouraging hospitals to sign the pledge to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 25% by 2030. And some of the strategies include increasing plants in the menu and reducing animal foods. So these are all positive steps in this movement for more plant-based options in healthcare. So there's also a growing trend for plant-based in tube feedings. And when I think about my early education as a dietitian, I feel like we've come full circle from this old idea that blenderized tube feeding formulas were inferior. And we're really coming back to this idea of whole foods in tube feedings. So we can offer plant-based options to patients, even those that are tube-fed. So it's just another way of extending that plant-based options to everyone. And families right now are really wanting to provide real plant-based foods for their tube-fed family members, especially children. They may be long-term tube-fed. So this really is a strong desire that they want to really provide these real healthful foods. They want to feel normal. They want to feel healthy, and they want to feel real about their food. And this follows right along with the mainstream eating trends. You know, everybody's talking about clean eating. They want to eat more organic foods. They want to eat more plant-based foods. So we're seeing the same thing in this population. So this desire is to eat real foods in the tube feedings: fruits, vegetables, nuts, grains, pulses. These are all the things that people want in tube feedings. So there are several plant-based formulas available, such as functional formularies. Liquid Hope is one. It's based with organic garbanzo beans, peas, carrots, brown rice, flax oil, quinoa, sweet potatoes, broccoli, almond butter, kale, garlic, turmeric, and then some herbs and vitamins. Kate Farms has a formula made with pea protein and phytonutrients and has brown rice syrup, sunflower oil, inulin, flaxseed oil, quinoa flour, chia, and then added vitamins and minerals. Nestle Health Science Complete Organic Plant-Based Blends have blueberries, kale, pears, sweet potatoes, brown rice flour, pea protein, cinnamon, and ginger with added vitamins and minerals to meet the DRI age appropriate. And Real Food Blends has a quinoa, kale, and hemp formula that also has grape juice, olive oil, and cinnamon. So we do have some interesting product formulas out there. And we're getting positive vibes back for these real food plant-based feedings. They have been well received by healthcare professionals such as dietitians, physicians, and nurses, and caregivers and families. You can use them in healthcare settings or home care settings. And it's exciting because they can provide some of the synergistic benefits from whole plant foods. So that's really cool. And surveys do show that healthcare professionals like these formulas. They like the ingredient list. They say that they're better tolerated. They say that they work for patients who have failure with other types of formulas. They report improved diarrhea and stools, improved protein and calorie status. And one study found that people who use these feedings report that they taste better. And we're talking about when they're burped, they have a better taste, and there's less retching and gagging as a side effect. And we also are seeing an increase in interest in home blenderized foods, using a really high quality blender, people making their own blenderized feedings. So there are benefits because the families can share the meals. There's increased variety. You know, there's a lot more variety when you're doing these blenderized feedings. It can cost less, and there could be improved tolerance. However, there's still a few concerns. There could be concerns with food safety, possible contaminants in the formulas. It could be difficult to administer in the tubing. And we have to be careful about nutrition planning, you know, to make sure they're meeting their nutrient needs on this sort of a feeding. So it could be for some clients and patients that a plant-based enteral formula might be better. So what about concerns of the nutritional status for children on a plant-based tube feeding? Well, research shows that well-planned and plant-based diets are appropriate for all ages and life cycles. And this is from the Academy and the American Academy of Pediatrics. And we now have over 3 decades of research that well-planned vegan diets are nutritionally adequate during the early years of development. So we do know that. We have a long history of plant-based diets among children. So as dietitians, we can help support our families' concerns, and we can help them meet their desires for feeding with accurate information. This is my son, Nicholas, who's been eating a plant-based diet his life. And research does show that children on a plant-based diet have health benefits. So they have lower risks of obesity, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, and cancer later in life. And they are leaner and have the BMI difference is even more significant in adolescents. So studies show that plant-based diets, vegan and vegetarian diets, are lower in energy density and high in complex carbs, fiber, and water. So they increase satiety and resting energy expenditure. Also, research shows that vegetarian children consume more of some nutrients than the average population, such as vitamins A, C, and folate, fiber, and iron. But there are still some nutrient needs of concern for children. We have to make sure they are getting enough of particular nutrients. And as dietitians, this is where we can really come in and help our clients. As I said, vegan children can meet or exceed their recommendations for many nutrients. So some of the concerns would be protein. Of course, it's completely possible to get enough protein in a plant-based diet. You can get all of the amino acids, and it's no longer thought that you have to complement proteins at the same feeding. However, it's still important to get protein-rich foods at each meal. Iron, children on vegan diets do not experience anemia, but there are increased iron needs, and this is due to bioavailability. So vitamin C can enhance availability of plant-based iron. But in general, the research shows that children on vegan diets, it's not a problem that they're experiencing anemia. Also, deficiency is rare in zinc for vegan children. It is found in things like soy, legumes, and nuts, so it's important. Those are some of the important foods that we're recommending anyway, so that helps provide that nutrient. Calcium can be a concern. Supplementation, consumption of plant-based calcium sources, fortified foods, these are all part of the plan of meeting the calcium needs. Fat, there is lower fat intake for vegan diets for children, but it's considered to be a negligible concern. It is important to get enough ALA to convert to EPA and DHA, and many experts are recommending microalgae supplements to provide those long-chain omega-3s. Vitamin B12 is absolutely essential. According to Pediatric Child Health, it's recommended that children get 5 to 50 micrograms per day, depending on their age. Vitamin D should be supplemented in addition to sun exposure. And then iodine can be a concern if children are not consuming iodized salt or it's not in their routine multivitamin supplement. So when it comes to research on plant-based enteral feedings, there is not much out there, and I really look forward to seeing more research in this area. One study found that it improved the health of the microbiota in chronically ill children, which is exciting and would make sense. Another study found that the plant derivatives in these formulas could help reduce side effects and improve the immune response. So these are two areas that I thought were interesting, and I think we'll see more in this area. So thank you very much. You can sign up for my free newsletter at the Plant Powered Dietitian. I encourage you to check out my blog and my social media. And if there's anything that I can do to help you with in terms of providing you with plant-based resources, make sure to reach out to me. I'm always there to help support dietitians. So thank you. I think we might have time for some questions.
Thank you, Sharon, very much. That was an excellent presentation. That was really excellent. Your slides the pictures in your slides make it really come to life. Thank you. We have a couple of questions to start. Let's see here. Someone said plant-based diets can be difficult for those on a limited or fixed income, or those that do not like to, cook or can't follow recipes, etc. Do you have any suggestions to help convince more people to try a plant-based diet?
Yes, I think that's a good question, because I do hear that people are afraid that plant-based diets are going to be more expensive or take more time. And I like to point out that plant-based diets can actually save you money. There was a study that found that they are less expensive than traditional diets, because again, the protein source, if you're using beans or lentils, it is the most economical protein source. So that can really save money, and as long as you're using seasonal vegetables and you don't have to go to a health food store and buy everything there, and you can save money that way. But also looking at using more familiar foods. It doesn't have to be a gourmet menu item that people are turning to. It can be simple little things like chili, a bean chili with a salad and bread for dinner, hummus with whole grain pita and veggies. One of the things I like to recommend is the bowl strategy, which is very popular now. We all love our bowl dishes, our whole grain bowls. And this works really well for a plant-based diet where you simply start with a cooked whole grain. It could be brown rice, sorghum, oats, quinoa, and you layer in a plant protein. It could be something like canned beans or lentils. It could be baked tofu, whatever veggies you want, and a flavorful sauce. And by doing that, you're getting all your food groups in there, and it's easy, economical, and very on trend. And it really shows how you can do plant-based eating really easily.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. We have another question here. First of all, they said, excellent presentation. How often do you recommend monitoring calcium, vitamin D, and vitamin B12 for adults on various plant-based diets?
I recommend that when you go for your annual checkup, you have, your B12 levels assessed. I think that's a great recommendation. One of the things that's important to keep in mind is that bioavailability of B12 is poor. So the Vegetarian Nutrition Dietetic Practice Group recommends that adults have 250 micrograms of B12 a day. So that's significantly higher than the RDA. So that's something to keep in mind. But I also think one of the beauties of our field is that dietitians should really sit down and help our clients and really look at the pattern and see where the little nutrients of concern. You may find that one client is not really getting enough calcium sources, so that might be an area that you want to look at. A client may be not getting enough vitamin D. They might not be in an area with a lot of sun exposure where they can, get it that way. So those are some areas you can look at too. So really individualizing the approach. Some experts like to recommend multivitamin and mineral supplement, just kind of a little insurance like we do for our other clients. So even just 2 or 3 times a week is another recommendation that might work for your clients.
Okay, thank you. Although it's still controversial, some healthcare professionals recommend avoiding foods high in antioxidants for patients that might be receiving chemotherapy or radiation therapy. How do you handle this situation for those on a plant-based diet?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Actually, I wrote an article about this for Today's Dietitian. If somebody wants to look it up, you could Google it. So there's some controversy around the idea of antioxidants and cancer treatment, such as chemo or radiation. And there's some thought that maybe antioxidants could interfere with treatment. And then there's other thought that they could actually help protect, the healthy cells from the side effects of these treatments. So my take on looking at the science is that eating whole food seems to be beneficial rather than isolated antioxidant supplements. I wouldn't feel comfortable recommending those, such as an isolated phytochemical or something like that. But eating the plant sources seems to keep that in balance and seems to have benefits.
Okay, I know you mentioned it, but is it your feeling or your expertise that children on a plant-based diet, whether it's a regular conventional food or on a plant-based tube feeding, that they grow and develop as expected?
Yeah, I've presented some research there that even the Academy, supports this. AAP supports this as well. That when they're vegan, even completely plant-based vegan children can have healthful, normal growth and development on a completely plant-based diet. So it's really important to look at the planning aspect. And I think, again, that's where dietitians can come in. One of the things that I like to recommend that might seem a little bit contradictory of our normal upbringing as a dietitian, our training, is that vegan children can actually if they're eating too many whole plant foods, it can actually slow down their weight loss because they can get full too quickly. There's so much fiber and the satiety that comes with the fiber. So it's recommended that vegan children, young children, have some refined foods like grain products to avoid this over satiety full that they may not be eating enough calories. And this could be done on a one-on-one approach. If you see, some children that don't have that issue, then you wouldn't have to be concerned with it. But it is an overall recommendation to keep an eye on making sure they're getting enough calories.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, I think there's one more question here. How do you convince patients that plant-based diets, like many other things in the news, isn't just a passing phase?
Yeah, I know we see so many fads come and go, but plant-based seems to be pretty consistent. I believe that the original dietitians always talked about with our clients was plant-based. We were just not calling it plant-based. When we think about always recommending fruits and vegetables, we've been doing that forever. Whole grains, beans, these are all things we're talking about. But now we're really putting it into a more, specific sort of framework. And this idea that 3/4 of the plate should be filled with plants, that's something that most dietitians can really just get right behind. So I feel like that is not just a flash in the pan, it's here to stay. And especially when we look at the environment, when we look at the concerns related to our natural resources, it's just more and more clear to us that we have to all start eating a more plant-based diet. We see so many environmental benefits with eating a more plant-based diet. When we look at the most recent reports that have come from the UN and the Eat Lancet report, we're recommending decrease in animal food production, consumption, and increase in plant foods. So I feel like that's not going to change.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate it. Well, we are just about out of time. Again, Sharon, thank you so much. And thank you to our audience. We really appreciate your participation. On behalf of the Nestle Nutrition Institute, we hope that you found this information useful to your practice. And please enjoy the rest of your day.